Coming up on this episode of Southside Stories.
I think maybe in 5-6 years' time, I think the City of London, it may look like a mini Manhattan. You know, you've got another 5 or 6 walkie-talkies to look at. The spring back into the office post-COVID has probably been sort of faster and harder than a lot of people were expecting. I suppose the oddest thing we've seen come into the market, and something that I've personally been able to negotiate into leases, is a dog policy for a tenant who's able to have dogs within their space.
Welcome to Southside Stories, the podcast about real London business, hosted by Matt Whittingham.
Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Southside Stories on another really, really hot day here in London. And it's a tale of two Matts today, because I've got Matt Hall with me. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt. How you doing?
Yeah, all good. And Matt is a chartered commercial surveyor. Matt works in particularly the City of London. And today's episode, we're all going to talk about the commercial property market here in London. And we're going to debunk a few myths as well, because despite all the gloom about the UK economy, the flatlining, etc., you might very well think that London, especially the City of London, is not in great shape. But we are here to tell you a bit of a different story on that. So should we get into it, Matt?
Yeah, sure.
So the City of London, probably one of the top sort of in-demand spots of the city. In fact, that's the way it used to be if you went back 20 or 30 years. But since 2008, we've had the financial crisis, we've had Brexit, we've had COVID. COVID, of course, brought with it the whole working from home piece. And the narrative seems to be around that point that the City of London is dead. Deutsche Bank are moving offshore. All these big financial companies are moving out. It's crisis, it's doom, it's gloom. But then the actual numbers tell a very different story, don't they, Matt?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the strapline that everyone was hearing, that the office is dead and everyone's going to be working from home, is here to stay, is definitely not the case. The spring back into the office post-COVID has probably been sort of faster and harder than a lot of people were expecting. And that's had an effect on the quality and the type and the sizes of office space in London that is now available. And what's happening is, companies, their biggest concern is getting the right talent into their companies and retaining that talent. And in order to get the people back into their offices, they're having to provide and supply, a very high quality office for them to come to. So what we're beginning to see is a huge take up, and a bit of that is sort of space banking, where tenants now, particularly the larger tenants, are beginning to take up space for sort of perceived growth in the next 3, 4, 5 years. And we're definitely seeing that, particularly, as everyone would expect, in the AI arena, where we're seeing a lot of AI companies or related companies coming into London. In particular, King's Cross will very quickly become one of the global hubs for AI companies, and we're beginning to see that with tenants that are moving in. Canary as well is also rumoured to be a part of London where we're going to see a lot of sort of AI tenants congregating. Just to name a few, Microsoft have just set up a new business or company within Microsoft called Microsoft AI. And they have literally just signed the lease on a 100,000 square foot building in the middle of Soho in Wardour Street. And that building, 100,000 square feet, which is a huge lump of space, will be the home basically just for AI people within Microsoft. So there's a lot of sort of thought and money being ploughed into that. And Meta as well. Meta have just signed a lease in the city just near Liverpool Street. They've got about 60,000 square feet. A company called Figma, another sort of big AI business. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of AI coming into London, and that has a habit of trickling down through other sectors. And just to give you an idea, Matt, in any one sort of cycle, if we look at just grade A brand new space in the city, every year you see between 3 to 5% of the total stock will be available at any one moment in time. That figure for 2027 and half of 28 we are estimating will be down to 0, which will basically mean there will be no brand new Grade A office space available in the City of London next year, which is interesting. Obviously, that has an effect on companies that need space, and that just trickles down. So what we're beginning to see, obviously, is the Grade B space is coming back into fashion. So landlords are busy now refurbishing Grade B space as far as they possibly can. Some buildings can't be refurbished any further than they can. So a lot of those buildings, instead of being knocked down, are being converted into hotels. So we're seeing a lot of hotels coming into the city as well.
I speak to a lot of architects, and retrofit has been a massive topic amongst architecture companies, particularly because of a lot of the emission and carbon emission standards that London has. And in fact, places like Westminster have got a deliberate planning strategy very much in favour of retrofit and not new build. So what happens, Matt? So if I'm a new company, maybe an AI company, looking to set up shop in London, maybe I'll need, not as big as Microsoft maybe, but I need 30,000, 50,000 square feet of space. What happens?
Well, in a nutshell, I mean, if I took a call today from someone that wanted exactly that in the next 6 to 9 months, it will be tricky. A lot of companies of that size will probably start their sort of process 15 to 18 months in advance. So if that person needs space tomorrow, for instance, or Monday, they probably would have started looking a year ago. So they probably would be okay today. But if a brand new inquiry just suddenly popped up today, they would probably be forced to take probably not the quality space that they would want, because the brand new space is quite simply not available. So that may have a problem.
Just on the quality piece, and you talked about A grade and B grade, what would be the difference between them?
Yeah, very good question. A term that a lot of people may have heard is this flight to quality, where what we're seeing is with the brand new Grade A space, we're seeing, and this is particularly post-COVID, that the quality has gone exponential. And that's not just the quality of the fit out and the furniture and everything, but the amenity space within these buildings, where, the absolute minimum will be, gym quality, showers and cycle racks. Some of these buildings now, as an example, 40 Leadenhall Street, they have a spa in there. They have sort of hairdressers. They have gyms, obviously. They've got a library in there, auditorium, cinema. They literally have ticked every single box. So the offering for a tenant is phenomenal. I mean, if you think that offices now are very much like 5-6 star global hotels that you'd expect in Dubai or Saudi or somewhere. It looks good. It smells good. They've got the smell aromas in the receptions. Everything's high tech. We've got smart buildings now. These buildings have all got apps, so a tenant can book theatre tickets or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they're all geared up, basically to serve the demands of the talent, the staff, basically, to keep them in that company and in that building. The only other thing that's really changed is it's not so much the size of space that these companies are taking. That hasn't reduced. It's how the space is used. And that's just design, and that's that sort of layout and furniture. So yeah, we're seeing big changes.
Let's look ahead then. So I think you said at the moment it's like 97% occupancy, which already seems very, very high to me. But then you're saying in a couple of years there's going to be no space left. But tell us about the supply pipeline. And clearly, stuff takes a while to come on stream. But what does that future supply look like right now in the city?
Yeah, a good question. I mean, the supply over the next 4 to 6 years is quite big. There are probably 6 or 7 planning consented developments that will start construction over the next 12 to 15 months. So in 4 years' time, 5 years' time, we will see probably another 6 circa 1 million square foot towers in the City of London. And just to put that into context, that's like having another 6 walkie-talkies dropped into the centre of the city. And they will be dropped into what we call the city cluster, which is where all the towers are clustered together. And that's not by coincidence. That's purely because the city cluster is on the edge of EC3, which is the insurance market, which is where all the big insurance companies are, who tend to be the big users of space. So, as example, at the moment, 22 Bishopsgate is the tallest building in the city or in central London. That goes up to sort of 60 levels. That's got Gordon Ramsay restaurants at the top, which you may have seen on the Netflix series.
Perhaps, yeah. You gave it a nickname, didn't you? Don't you call that one the Beast?
Yeah, well, it's not. It's a nickname within the sort of the agency community. It's called the Beast for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Because it's huge, and if anyone's been in it, it's huge. It's like walking when you walk into it at ground floor level to reception. It's like walking into a mini shopping mall. So you've got escalators going up everywhere, huge area, volume everywhere. It's huge, lots of people. You can imagine there's a lot of people in there. The building is about 1.2 million square feet. So that's the biggest building at the moment in the city. But it will be dwarfed in about 6 years by a building called simply One London, which is currently Aviva Tower, which sits directly between the Leadenhall building and Swiss Re building, the Gherkin.
Yeah.
And
is that the one that's being demolished?
Yeah, it's being demolished right now. It's the biggest building in London to ever be demolished. So they're knocking down a building that is about 800,000 square feet to replace it with another one that will be about 1.3 million square feet. So they're busy knocking it down now. They'll start construction probably in 18 months, 24 months, and that will be ready in 2032, 33. And that will be 22 Bishopsgate, which is 60 floors. This one will be about 74 floors, and it will have a huge public offering at the top. All these towers now coming through, they're all having to have public spaces at the top. And just to put it into context, the building in height will be 0.2 of a mile, which doesn't sound a lot, but it does when you're going up.
For a vertical tower, that sounds incredible. I mean, that Aviva Tower, I mean, for those people that know it, it's the one I'm thinking of. It's quite near the Lloyd's building, isn't it?
Yeah, it's right. It's got the little piazza in the front, and during Wimbledon they have the screens on tennis and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought that wasn't a bad-looking building and fairly big square feet, but it's a great example of just a demand for quality space. The fact that they're taking down the biggest building ever to be demolished in London and building up an even bigger one. And I actually remember you telling me about 22 Bishopsgate, because I think sometimes we think, can there be enough demand for the space? And you've already told us there is. But actually, you told me that 22 Bishopsgate was fully let by the time it came on market. Is that right?
Yeah, not quite fully, but it was, I think they pre-let. And when we say pre-let, we mean legally committed to before construction completion. Probably, it was probably 70% pre-let. And that was primarily big insurance companies who were sort of pre-letting into that. But obviously, if you're a business and you're taking, 2, 3, sometimes 400,000 square feet, you are very much working 3 years in advance of when you actually need it. So what quite often happens is that a lot of these tenants, they take what's called an option, because anything can happen within that 3-year period. You might need more space, you might need less space. So what tends to happen is that these pre-let agreements, the tenant has an option, say 6 months before PC or at practical completion, but they got an option to take another floor if they want it. And all those options were taken up, which is great for the cities. The confidence is there with the bigger tenants. That 3 years ago they were a little bit wary. A year ago they were pretty sure that they wanted it, the extra space.
Yeah. So to summarize, we've got a big crunch in terms of available space in the next 2 to 3 years. Because of that, the short-term solution in part is landlords retrofitting and refurbishing grade B space. And then we've got, sounds like, 6 million square feet coming on in about 4 to 5 years. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, let's switch to tenants. So we talked about this a little bit. What's non-negotiable from a tenant perspective? Clearly, amenities, gym, the great working space. But what is kind of non-negotiable now for a tenant that wasn't maybe 5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I suppose the oddest thing we've seen come into the market, and something that I've personally been able to negotiate into leases. One example is a dog policy for a tenant who's able to have dogs within their space. And it sounds a bit jokey, but a lot of these tech companies. I mean, I represented a very, very fast growing, an exponentially fast growing tech company, and they insisted on it. A lot of their key talent wanted to bring their dogs in because it's part of their creative working, and it was a big thing at the time. And this was something that I did 5, 6 years ago. So in that particular instance, we managed to negotiate a dog policy which allowed them to take in up to 30 dogs, which is beginning to be quite common within certain types of buildings. So in terms of what tenants expect within a lease, probably flexibility is the main thing. So long leases now are very far and few between.
I guess the dog example, because it's been quite hard for companies to get into this kind of negotiation really with the workforce. How do you get a workforce that's become used to working from home back into the office? And I think you were talking about that. You got some examples, I think, of companies that are now requiring in the city employees to come back into the city. You sort of have to offer some of these things that people have got used to in a home environment.
Yeah,
dogs is probably a good example.
Yeah, I think so. And a lot of the major banks, JP Morgan, Goldman's, Barclays, and Amazon, they are now insisting on sort of 3-4 days a week in the office. So the sort of stay at home flex, it's here to stay. Flexi working is not going to go anywhere. But I think a lot of firms now are beginning to insist on 3-4 days minimum in the office. And in order to be able to achieve that, they're having to say, the talent's saying, fine, we'll come in, but we want to come into something that's nice to work in. So the whole thing is having to be improved. So the improved office will hopefully improve the attendance, which will probably hopefully improve productivity.
Yeah. Do you ever see a mismatch between perhaps what the landlord thinks tenants want, but what the tenant actually wants?
Yeah, I think landlords now, I think they're pretty good now. I think it all began to change. I think WeWork, the original WeWork model, and there are other service office providers available. But to use them as an example, they were very good. They were a bit of a disruptor into the market when they arrived, and they taught the market that a building it's there to serve the tenant. It's not just a kind of a rent collector. So they were very good at having great, sofas everywhere and free beer for staff and music and making it a very nice and happy environment. And that concept it's evolved a bit more maturely into what we see today, but it was definitely the platform for that evolution. So we're now definitely seeing the office as being a friendly, collaborative place that people want to be in, which is what people want, and I guess and how it should be. Yeah. So I think landlords now, a lot of landlords have it's a bit of a wake up call for a lot of landlords. The bigger landlords have been doing that for a number of years, and the sort of the medium sized landlords are definitely beginning to do that, and they're having to provide it, because if they don't, the buildings will just lay empty.
What does all this mean for rents?
Yeah, rents. Another good question. Rents have never been so high. Rents in the city have risen quite considerably. Number of reasons. One is handle on supply, and secondly, landlords are because of the quality that they're improving. Obviously, that's passed down through the rent. Give you an example that the central London market is primarily divided up into three: West End, City, and Canary. So Canary has its own kind of its own supply demand. 20, 30 years ago, rents in the West End were probably at least double what they are or were in the City. And today we're probably seeing, probably just 15, 20% higher. So that gap has definitely closed in. And the reason for that is, one of the reasons is size of space. You can't get the quantum of space in the West End for physical reasons, planning, etc. Quality of the space, because you can only really put exponential quality into a new building. It's quite difficult to put that quality into a period building for obvious physical reasons. And also the city is, it's not full of barkers and bowler hats and brollies. It's very cosmopolitan now and very, very tech orientated. A lot of tech businesses now in the city. And a lot of the banks, the fintech banks, have relaxed the whole feel of the city. So the whole thing's much, much more, bit more West Endy, really, to feel like.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I mean, I live just across the river, so I quite often walk in. My wife works in Moorgate. And I mean, even on a Saturday, it used to be 10, 15 years ago, it was dead. There was nobody there. But now the weekends, there are quite a lot of people going out. There's some great bars, restaurants, etc. It's become very, very different from what it was a couple of years ago. Just to give us a kind of, so you've done a comparison between the city and the West End. If you just looked at city rents, I mean, just to give us a sort of percentage increase perhaps over the last 10, 15 years? I mean, how much have they gone up?
Okay, well, in terms of answering that question, I mean, again, looking at, it depends which sector of the market. Grade A, top end market, we've probably seen rents have comfortably over the last probably 3 years, 4 years, have jumped 20% comfortably. Which isn't a big number in percentage, but it's a big number in rent. So, a building that may have achieved 85, 90 pounds a foot is now 120, 130, right at the top of the market. That's the top floor of the towers, etc. And tenants seem to be maybe not happy, but willing to pay the rent. Because for them, it's about the quality, and it's, as I say, the quality. It's all about staff, talent retention.
Tell us about how you work, Matt, because you're working in really interesting market dynamics, aren't you? Where you've got this market where it's interesting, isn't it? You've got a very high demand, you've got a very tight supply. Tell us about how you work. So if I come to you, I'm a tenant, I'm an AI company, I'm looking for some great space in London. How do you help me?
Yeah, well, I'm a chartered surveyor. I've been working in the city market, office market for nearly 30 years now. I'm a boutique sort of consultancy-led business. That's the service. I'm not a broker. I'm more of a consultant. I do a lot of repeat business for clients. And I'm a bit of a problem solver. A client may come to me and say, look, we want to grow. We'd like to grow. The office is inadequate now. However, we're stuck in a lease obligation for another 2 or 3 years. We better just put it off. So it's the when they say we'd like to move, but it's the but bit that I help with. And on a number of occasions, I've said to my client, leave it with me. I'll see if I can sort out your dilemma for you. And in a number of occasions, I've managed to speak to their existing landlords. On one instance, the landlord, who I happen to know the individual there from another company when I was employed there, he said, look, we've got another tenant in the building. He would quite like your client's floor. So we were able to exit them, surrender them out of their lease fairly easily. It was one of those opportune moments. It doesn't happen every day, but they were quite lucky at that time. So we surrendered them out of their building. We were able to move them on sort of 6 months later into a new space, and they were able to grow their business. whereas the CEO was quite happy to just let it drift until the lease naturally came to an end. Because he just had no idea that he was able to exit a liability reasonably easily. It's not always achievable, but if it is achievable, I will find it, and that's invaluable to clients. So I run my business. I primarily act for tenants. I'll look from 2 or 3 guys wanting a small room in a serviced office up to a company employing 300-400 people. I've recently put someone into a floor in the walkie-talkie building. They're a firm of asset managers employing about 200 staff. I do a lot of work with tech companies. So my ideal company to work with at the moment is definitely a young, small startup business who are looking to scale over the next 6, 9, 12, 15 months. And they want just to enter the London office market as a base, but they will be growing every 3-6 months. So for me, that's the ideal client. In terms of how we do it, I've been working here for 30 years. I have an enviable contact base of I know all the buildings. I know all the agents in the market, and I know most of the landlords, the owners of the buildings. So I have a unique advantage over a lot of my competitors, where I can get off-market buildings instantly. As an example, a friend might call me on the way back from a meeting at a building where their landlord client's got space coming up. The tenant's leaving in 3 months. They're going to refurbish it for 3 months, ready in 6 months. And I'll place it with a client, and we'll have it under offer within a couple of days. And I would know that information before he's even probably got back to his own office. So by the time he's got back to the office, done the report, the brochure's prepared, and it's gone onto a screen somewhere, it's 3 months later. So that's my offering. That's where I can help a lot of clients is everything's done pretty much off market and below the radar.
Yeah.
But as I say, Matt, I'm more than happy if it's one guy just wanting a room, a hub in London that's he may be based at home in wherever, Cambridge or wherever. I'm more than happy to help him up to probably sweet spot is probably 100 people.
If I am a smaller, younger business, do I go for a serviced office? Do I go for full lease? Is that something you could help and advise me on? And what pointers would you give for somebody that's trying to make that decision?
No, definitely. I make a point of sitting down with the client and getting a proper quality brief of what they want, what they are, what they do, growth aspirations, timings, amounts, etc. So I do really try and bespoke what I do with them. And it may be that I say, look, you're not ready for a lease. I'll put you into a service office where you can come out on 3 months' notice. And then we'll reconvene and see where you're at. We can either then renew it, or we can find you your own space for 2,000-3,000 square feet with a 3-year break. Mm-hmm. So everyone's different. The worst scenario is to be stuck in a space that's too small, where it stalls your growth potential, because the rent is irrelevant. It's the loss in revenue that's the big hit. So I'm very mindful of that. And also, Matt, it depends on what the company does. For instance, a firm of lawyers wouldn't want to be in a WeWork environment, for instance, whereas a young tech couple of guys, it might suit them. So again, I will put them where I think they will, where they're a good fit. And in my experience, a lot of tenants, they might not be aware of the different types of offerings, even within the serviced industry or the managed industry or the conventional industry sectors. So I can very quickly say, look, you're definitely either a Regis, WeWork, whoever. There are lots of them, obviously, and clients find that quite valuable. I mean, some people prefer to give it a go, get on the laptop and type in office for 10 people, hit green and see what comes up. But as I said before, by the time it hits the screen, for me, there's something wrong with it. Either it's too expensive or it's compromised in some way. If it's decent, it wouldn't be on the screen. I would have taken it for somebody else 3 months before. So it's not so much what they see on the screen. It's more what they've missed. What isn't on the screen is what is the loss for them that they could have had if they'd had me 3 months before.
So we'll put your website details in the show notes. So if you are a tenant out there, or you're thinking about upgrading your space or moving, or you're looking at options, we'll put a web link so you can get in touch with Matt. Let's wrap up, Matt. Looking forward, where do you think the city market is headed in the next 2 or 3 years? We talked about that a little bit. Or is there any live building coming up that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, so I just go back to your previous point. I mean, if there's anyone out there that just wants a chat with someone that can give them a bit of knowledge on what's there and processes or strategies, I'm more than happy to have a chat with someone just to give them some assistance in the very initial early stages. So that's not a problem. Your other question, in terms of where the market's going, I think maybe in 5-6 years' time, I think the City of London, it may look like a mini Manhattan. You've got another 5 or 6 walkie-talkies to look at. When I came into the market 30 years ago, there were 2 towers. And the city to me looks different. Yeah. So I think in the next 5 years, it will look totally different. And that's not just the view from across the river. I think the streetscape will change, the pavements will widen. We're going to see a lot more road closing for pedestrians. We're going to see a lot more offerings at ground floor level. We're going to see a boost, obviously, in cafes, coffee shops, restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. The retail offering is definitely coming back into the city. You go up to Liverpool Street round Broadgate. It's got all the luxury retailers are there. So the city is going to become year on year much more adaptable to what people want and much more favourable and just better all round.
Matt, thank you so much for your time. That was fascinating. As I say, we'll put the link on the show notes. But Matt, thank you for your time today.